During the medieval period, an artistic masterpiece was created which remains with us to this day. It commemorates the Norman Conquest of England in 1066 AD by William, Duke of Normandy. Named the Bayeux Tapestry, it is an exceptional embroidered work of art. Though as beautiful and famous the Bayeux Tapestry appears, there are mysteries hidden within its marvelous stitching that many are still trying to solve. So, why is the Bayeux Tapestry famous, with more than 400,000 visitors each year making the exciting pilgrimage to its very own museum? Hello everyone, my name is Craig, host of Medieval to Modern. We feature fascinating information from civilization's medieval ages. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to help grow this channel. To explore the mysteries behind the Bayeux Tapestry, we must first learn more about this fascinating medieval artwork. Its name comes from the place in Normandy, France, where it was kept for centuries and eventually rediscovered. Technically speaking, this is not a true tapestry. Measuring 230 feet in length and 20 inches high, it is actually an embroidered linen cloth with stitching of wool yarn in 8 colors, 5 of them principal colors. These principal colors are russet, dull gold, blue-green, blue, and olive green. The Bayeux Tapestry was assembled in 9 panels, and the joins were covered with more embroidery. The artwork is lightly browning due to age, showing 58 scenes starting in the year 1064 AD and leading up to and including the Norman Conquest of England. At the historic Battle of Hastings, Harold II, King of England, was defeated by William, Duke of Normandy. This singular event, which occurred on October the 14th, 1066, changed the course of English history. Speculation is that the Bayeux Tapestry was created in Canterbury, Kent, England, before the completed work found its way to France. It is believed to have been commissioned by Bishop Odo of Bayeux, the Duke of Normandy's half-brother. The artwork's creation is thought to have started within a few years after the battle, between 1070 to 1077. After the Battle of Hastings' victory, Bishop Odo was made Earl of Kent. This event helps advance the theory that this Bayeux Tapestry was embroidered by Anglo-Saxon craftspeople, along with the fact that vegetable dyes were commonly used in Anglo-Saxon cloth creations at that time. Furthermore, English variant spellings of certain names on this embroidered work indicate the craftspeople were comfortable with the English language. Due to the imprisonment of Bishop Odo in 1082 by William I, it is assumed the Bayeux Tapestry was completed before this time. The Bayeux Tapestry is divided into 3 segments. On the top and bottom borders are Aesop's fables, along with scenes of other medieval fables, people, and animals. Occasionally, these border images appear to interact with the main scenes in the center, as if to highlight key events. It is the center part which depicts the story of the Norman Conquest of England. To distinguish the combatants, Anglo-Saxons are shown with mustaches, and the Normans with heads shaved at the back. There are 626 people portrayed in the embroidery, and even a depiction of Halley's Comet being witnessed by soldiers. Revealing the unequal social customs of the day, only 3 women are shown on the embroidery. It is estimated that the Bayeux Tapestry took nearly a decade to make. It was revealed to the public at the dedication of the Bayeux Cathedral in 1077 AD. This marvelous embroidery begins with a scene from 1064. At this time, Harold Godwinson is sent to Normandy by King Edward the Confessor to inform William, Duke of Normandy, he is heir to the English throne. In the period of time after meeting the Duke and certain further events, Harold Godwinson accepts arms from William, which is seen as a symbol of Harold Godwinson's loyalty to the Duke. It is also assumed that Harold Godwinson swears a sacred oath to William, Duke of Normandy. However, on King Edward's death, Harold Godwinson accepts the crown for himself, breaking his pledged loyalty to William, Duke of Normandy. This betrayal sets into motion the Duke of Normandy's conquest of England. The final scenes show the death of Harold II, King of England, his army scattering after defeat at the Battle of Hastings. The Bayeux Tapestry has its first written mention in 1476 after being recorded in the treasury notes of Bayeux Cathedral. It was rediscovered in 1729 AD at Bayeux Cathedral. Since that time, it has survived 2 world wars, the French Revolution, and the aging of time. From the year 1886 onwards, a full-size replica has been located at Reading Museum in England. For many years, the Bayeux Tapestry has been used by researchers to gain further understanding of events related to the Battle of Hastings. In addition, due to its remarkable detail, important information on the customs, clothing, dining practices, military tactics, and other characteristics from that period are revealed for all to see. However, a famous artwork like the Bayeux Tapestry has mysteries which still puzzle many, from professional researchers to interested viewers. Medieval to Modern will now mention the most important secrets people want answered. To begin, we still do not know how the Bayeux Tapestry ends, since its original final scenes are missing and still have not been recovered. These final scenes are thought to have been either cut, removed, or frayed away. The missing piece is commonly thought to be between 8 to 10 feet in total. The final scene, thought to consist of at least 2 panels, have been speculated to include William, Duke of Normandy's coronation. Medieval to Modern wishes to ask the following questions concerning these lost scenes. What if the missing conclusion was an act of sabotage, perhaps by a craftsperson loyal to the old Anglo-Saxon regime? Or possibly the missing panels were never finished in the first place, meant to be completed though never concluded. Another thought is that these missing panels are hidden in an unknown or forgotten pile where the craftspeople labored, waiting to be added to the Bayeux Tapestry. Continuing with the mysteries of this famous embroidery, what is the meaning of these 2 borders above and below the main story? There is certainly a purpose which is important to the narrative's interpretation beyond decoration. Could these images tell of another happening at that time? A riddle perhaps that holds more secrets behind the conquest, or other themes that we the viewers should be aware of. Next, there is the mystery behind one of only 3 women depicted in the artwork. She is shown as a leading subject in a unique scene, the figure named Elgifia or Elgiva. This name appears over her head as she is positioned in a doorway while a priest touches her on the cheek. The inscription translated from Latin reads, "Here is a certain cleric and Elgifia." No further explanation is offered. One assumes this lady was portrayed for a reason, though what connection to the Norman Conquest does she have? As one of 3 women on the Bayeux Tapestry and shown in a prominent position, there must be some significance. There have been numerous theories presented over centuries about her identity, though none are conclusive. Then there is the simmering argument about which figure represents King Harold II, or if he is even depicted at all. Is he not the person struck in the eye, as has been believed for centuries? Through past professional research, it appears the arrow is not an original depiction and was added later. Furthermore, it was not present during 1729 engravings made by Bernard de Montfaucon. Some have suggested the slain figure that is mutilated under a horse's hooves is consistent with being King Harold II. Close examination of this needlework shows that at one time there too was an arrow through this figure's eye. In medieval times, an arrow in this place or other attack weapon through the eye indicated a perjurer, or in this case that King Harold II did not have a rightful claim to the throne. Various researchers say to take caution with interpreting the scenes depicted, since the embroidery was commissioned by the victor. Therefore, they imply that an element of political propaganda is fashioned into the Bayeux Tapestry. However, there appears to be for many a remarkable portrayal of battle, in which neither side is shown blameless or without fault. Anglo-Saxon scenes of courage and Norman cruelty are displayed. Also, there are some sympathetic portrayals of the Anglo-Saxons in this embroidery. There were times when the Bayeux Tapestry was not given the high honor it enjoys today. During the French Revolution in 1792, the precious embroidery was saved from becoming cover for military wagons. The Bayeux Tapestry was registered as a Memory of the World artifact by UNESCO in 2007. It is on display at the Bayeux Tapestry Museum in Normandy, France. This fascinating artwork has not left France in at least 950 years. The Bayeux Tapestry is a complex art piece which employs techniques not commonly practiced until centuries later. Examples include the use of perspective and displaying pointing gestures with figures to show the viewer who is speaking and indicate important features. The Bayeux Tapestry remains a work of both awe and mystery and is considered one of the most valuable documents from the medieval period. Have we been looking in the wrong areas to solve the Voynich Manuscript? Instead of just trying to decipher an unknown language, we should also be working to solve fundamental questions with this mystery book. The Voynich Manuscript cannot be solved without considering a number of vital factors which at the moment are not given the attention they deserve. In this episode on the Voynich Manuscript, Medieval to Modern will present issues which may seem unconventional or even controversial, though by revealing these issues, new approaches and fresh perspectives perspectives should bring renewed excitement into solving the Voynich Manuscript. Hello everyone, my name is Craig, host of Medieval to Modern. We feature fascinating information from civilization's medieval ages. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to help grow this channel. If you have not done so already, make sure to watch our great episode titled The Voynich Manuscript, Most Mysterious Book Ever, for more important information on this fascinating unsolved mystery. The link will be provided in the description box below. Now, prepare to receive fresh perspectives on the Voynich Manuscript. In the view of Medieval to Modern, these questions need to be answered in order to help decode the Voynich Manuscript. We shall begin with the physical composition of the manuscript itself. Many people do not realize the current cover of the Voynich Manuscript is not an original. The goatskin casing we see today is thought to have replaced its original covering while at the Collegio Romano in Rome, Italy. Research suggests the Collegio Romano is where the Voynich Manuscript was held. During a 200-year period, its whereabouts are officially unaccounted for. Closer examination suggests that a wood cover and a tan leather inside cover were the previous coverings for this manuscript. Here is where important information on the provenance of this manuscript would have been contained. On the cover, one would expect to see the title, authors if listed, style of writing, and materials used to make these covers. Any of these great clues would have yielded valuable knowledge, especially with modern scientific methods like carbon dating. So, do these original covers still exist? Located in the same places this manuscript was held for 200 years before these items were also relocated? When Jan Marek Marcy sent the Voynich manuscript to his friend Athanasius Kircher at Collegio Romano in 1665, we note an important detail. There was no mention in the cover letter of a damaged cover or any alterations to the manuscript's physical appearance. Also note that Mr. Kircher wished to acquire the book from its previous owner, Georg Baresch, though he refused to sell it. It is very interesting to realize Mr. Kircher never returned the book to Jan Marek Marcy. This is just one in a number of odd circumstances while the Voynich manuscript was held at Collegio Romano. Opening the Voynich manuscript, we find our next key discovery. The current manuscript contains around 240 pages. The research indicates additional pages are missing. It has often been suspected there was a manual or code key for the Voynich manuscript. Though what if this manual were not separate from the folio of current manuscript pages? Could these missing pages have contained the code key for the whole manuscript? Related to this query, was this an intentional action because the cipher key was written in an identifiable language that would help decode the manuscript's so-called Voynichese script? Research also suggests the pages in this current manuscript were reordered, with the original sequence quite different from what we see today. Why was this reordering done? Once again, there is no mention of this in the letter of Jan Marek Marcy to Mr. Kircher. It appears this reordering and extraction of missing pages happened after the manuscript arrived from Mr. Kircher at Collegio Romano. If this happened during its 200 years at the college, it would also necessitate a new cover for the manuscript. Even if the wooden cover was somewhat worn, the more durable leather cover would most likely have been in satisfactory condition. The physical evidence with the current Voynich manuscript reveals another fact. Some parchments are thicker than others, suggesting replacements of original parchments. Once again, these pieces may have contained valuable clues or codes for helping to solve the Voynich manuscript. Could this too have happened at Collegio Romano during its 200-year stay after delivery to Mr. Kircher? Did Mr. Kircher discover information so valuable he could not let the Voynich manuscript leave the college in its original form? During its 200 years at Collegio Romano, it is fair to assume Mr. Kircher was not the only person that attempted to decipher the Voynich manuscript. Who did he refer the mystery book to, and what other people at the college had the Voynich manuscript in their possession? If it was an intact book on arrival at the college, could the key code pages have been removed and other pages replaced so it could not be translated? With the presence of Latin script, we can narrow down the origins of the current Voynich manuscript to communities or locations where Latin script was introduced before the period of 1404 to 1438 AD. Also, multilingual communities which hosted travelers or foreign contacts might be an added feature of the location where it was written. This would give the manuscript authors comfort writing in 2 languages or more if they already had practice translating strange script back into their own language. Latin script originated around the 7th century BCE in Italy and has changed continually ever since. If the Voynich manuscript was copied from existing source source material, which was a common practice by medieval knowledge seekers and bookmakers, the original information source could be much earlier than the current manuscript. Remember that the carbon dating of the Voynich Manuscript is not being questioned, which is from 1404 to 1438 AD. Under this assumption, it is the source material from which the manuscript may have been obtained, which is being brought into focus. In medieval times, common people did not have the ability to write in Latin, let alone read it. A scribe like those at a monastery scriptorium would be educated and versed in the writing of Latin, or a learned person with a good education. The lack of errors in this manuscript reminds one of a scribe copying from source material. In addition, the scribing process would use a separate illustrator for drawings. Research into the Voynich manuscript states there was most likely a separate person used for illustrations, which would conform to this assumption. So, how old could a possible original source manuscript be for the current Voynich manuscript? A layperson's view of the crude illustrations within this mystery book suggests possible source material may have predated the oldest illuminated manuscripts in existence. They came from the kingdom of the Ostrogoths in the 400 to 600 AD period. Or if the source material was from a later date, these illustrations could indicate this was not a wealthy community. Illuminated books were expensive and labor-intensive, meaning in most circumstances only wealthy institutions or individuals could afford to produce them. These illustrations contained in the Voynich manuscript suggest means were not at their disposal. Even if they could afford illumination, the material was likely too dangerous to risk that level of exposure. Looking at the style of noted scribes from periods before the 13th century may provide good clues as to where this style of writing could have possibly originated. Note I refer to style of writing, a talent which in many cases would have been taught from a mentor in a particular area or region. The current copy we have of the Voynich manuscript indicates it may have been composed in Italy during the early 15th century. However, this does not mean the current material was not sourced from an earlier period of documents. For example, the depiction of a castle with towers and swallowtail battlements could have been added by a scribe while copying from earlier source material. Remember that in this medieval period, copying from a number of sources to make a book was a common practice by scribes. Replaced covers, missing pages, and different parchments are just a number of indications that the current version of the Voynich manuscript is not unaltered. Was the source material from which the Voynich manuscript possibly made produced by a scribe in a monastic community possessing heretical knowledge, or a spiritual community with information deemed heretical at that time? With flowing script containing no visible errors in a 20 to 25 key character language written left to right in Voynichese, this does not appear to be written original expression. Rather, this reinforces the chances of this Voynich manuscript being copied from an original source or sources by a trained scribe or learned person. Clearly, the authors were scared of persecution for some reason and had to make their important information difficult to interpret. The complexity of this script suggests it was not only dangerous at the time to possess this knowledge, but that it was contrary to the beliefs of a dominant institution. If this was a persecuted religious or heretical sect that authored the source material for the Voynich manuscript, they may have been justified to have such fears. One looks at what happened to the Cathars in the 13th century to see how medieval dominant institutions dealt with heresy claims. Medieval to modern believes this illustrated codex may contain deep secrets that were meant to be passed on, including ancient, valuable information gathered from much older, unknown documents. However, due to the time and place where the authors lived, it could not be made too obvious and place them in danger from authorities or dominant organizations. Concealing heretical ideas during a period of inquisitions or absolute power was necessary, especially scientific information or that which challenged existing beliefs in a profound way. Another key area to uncover involves the circumstances of Mr. Voynich's acquisition of this manuscript. Wilfrid Voynich appeared to be the recipient of good fortune when he came upon the sale of 30 manuscripts in 1912. These manuscripts were part of a proposed sale in 1903 to the Vatican Library. Curiously, the college did not consummate this transaction until 1912. What were the issues which caused a 9-year delay? Especially if Collegio Romano Society of Jesus was in dire financial straits in 1903. Could the value of the Voynich manuscript have lost its worth to the Vatican Library and they did not wish to purchase it? What did they know about the Voynich manuscript that the college was selling, along with the 29 others that were sold to Mr. Voynich? As for the society, it would have made a great selling feature if they told Mr. Voynich the papers had such high value the Vatican Library wished to purchase them. When esteemed professional antique book dealer Hans P. Krauss was unable to find a buyer for the Voynich manuscript, he donated it to Yale University in 1969. When one thinks of the great interest in this mystery book and those in the past that wished to possess it, why was the interest not there for such a famous item? These fresh perspectives are meant to open new avenues of discussion and methods of discovery to help solve the Voynich Manuscript mystery. They are presented in the spirit of helping to open new approaches and spur additional ways to help solve the mystery of Voynichese. Perhaps there are those out there that have unknown information to guide a fresh path in the Voynich Manuscript mystery. If so, we can hope they come forward to reveal such knowledge. After all, their information may not only help solve the Voynich Manuscript, they'll help solve other mysteries from the past connected to this fascinating book. If you wish, there is a famous medieval religious painting mystery that requires your best research skills to solve. This remarkable artwork has been admired by millions of viewers over centuries, though the artist remains unidentified. However, as well known as the painting named Little Garden of Paradise has become, there is only an alias to identify the artist. This extraordinary painting, which is among the top religious masterpieces of the Middle Ages, deserves the real artist's name to be discovered. So, we will provide all of the relevant information our research found to help identify this person. Then, it is up to the art detective in you to try and solve this art mystery, one of the greatest identity secrets from the Middle Ages creative world. Medieval art in Europe developed from Christian religious imagery combined with regional artistic styles to create a new, distinct style of painting. During the tumultuous Middle Ages, religion played an important role in many vital artworks, along with deep symbolism that held important messages for both contemporary painters and artists. Captivating symbolic colors were made from earth pigments bound by substances such as egg yolk to develop art which separated itself from formal religious paintings in past periods. There was a bold attempt with late Gothic art, especially in Northern Europe, to portray human forms and scenes in a more natural way. Now we shall learn more about this famous painting created by the Upper Rhenish master. The Paradiesgartlein, or Little Garden of Paradise, is currently located at Stadel Art Museum in Frankfurt, Germany, on permanent loan from the Historical Museum in Frankfurt, Germany. This splendid mixed-technique oak wood panel painting measures 26.3 centimeters by 33.4 centimeters. It is an exceptional example of a late Gothic German painting. The Little Garden of Paradise is emotionally styled and inspired by devotion, with religious figures and nature brought together in a pleasurable scene. This tranquil setting of safety and happiness is assumed to have been created by the Upper Rhenish master between approximately 1410 to 1420 AD. The pleasure of calming gardens is increasingly noted after the beginning of the 13th century. This appreciation developed from the practicality of monastic herb gardens and the peaceful bounty they provided. Of course, in the Middle Ages, gardens were also symbols of paradise when we consider the Garden of Eden. Here, the eternal paradise garden is depicted within a medieval castle's walled surroundings to symbolize protection of the virginity of Mary. Various researchers mention this as the sacred Hortus Conclusus, closed garden, which is a reference to Mary's virginity. The Christian theme includes a seated Virgin Mary reading a book and the Christ child, along with several saints, enjoying their time in the secluded garden. In this painting, figures like Saint Dorothy, who is picking cherries as a sign of purity and eternal life, are presented. Also, Saint Barbara is portrayed taking water from a well, and Archangel Michael has a grotesque small demon displayed at his feet to remind us of human shortcomings. Observing further, we witness Jesus playing a psaltery with the patron saint of music, Saint Cecilia. During this period, music was perceived to be spiritual joy. The Little Garden of Paradise represents a mythological, devotional scene, inviting the viewer's gaze ever closer to these skillful, symbolic depictions. The pleasurable scene of escapism is far removed from realities of 15th century Europe, with its violent conflicts, everyday harsh realities, and lurking danger. This is a devotional scene which combines religious imagery with secular themes like nature, pleasure, and virtue. As background scenes of nature become more recognized in late Gothic paintings, the Upper Rhenish master elevated this theme with beautiful harmony in this painting. There is a masterful use of shading and angles to create perspective, along with an appreciation of space to create harmonious, symbolic themes which are very attractive. Here is a peaceful scene of symbolism many contemporary viewers at that time could understand. With the incorporation of nature, 24 distinct plant species and 12 bird species show the interaction of nature and religion in surroundings of serene beauty. Through the use of nature, more contemporary symbolism is also provided. For example, in Germany at that time, primroses were thought to be the key to heaven, white lilies symbolized the Virgin Mary's purity, and the tree stump in the foreground was meant to show how evil cuts down the spirituality of humanity. The Little Garden of Paradise displays a masterful use of visual communication for a largely illiterate population, which is breathtaking in its execution. The Little Garden of Paradise remains a work of both awe and mystery. Today, this painting is considered a valuable example of late Gothic art. Now that we have learned important information concerning this famous painting by the Upper Rhenish master, let us present the very limited information available on this mystery artist. They are an unknown, deeply symbolic painter who is thought to have been practicing in the Strasbourg area of France from 1410 to 1430 AD. Their style does remind one of the Flemish school of painting, traditionally known as Flemish primitives. This similarity is drawn from the use of symbolism to convey hidden messages and religious imagery that most astute viewers from that period would recognize and appreciate. However, one recognizes the Flemish primitives period is assumed to have begun in the 1420s at the earliest, and the Little Garden of Paradise was created in 1410 to 1420 at the latest. This would suggest the Flemish primitive artists were influenced somewhat by styles from the late Gothic painting miniatures, like Little Garden of Paradise. Therefore, it may be possible that Flemish primitive skills, like Jan van Eyck's use of oils, may have been learned from observation of, or a mentor like, the Upper Rhenish master, working with oil in their panel paintings. In addition to the Little Garden of Paradise, there are two other recognized oil paintings by the mysterious Upper Rhenish master that may provide further clues to their identity. These paintings are named Nativity of the Virgin and the Death of Saint Joseph. Both are the property of the City Hospital of Strasbourg in France. Since 1936, the Musée du Louvre Notre Dame in Strasbourg has displayed these paintings. Recently, both paintings were thought to have been created around 1430 AD. They are assumed to have been parts of a larger altarpiece from a former city hospital place of worship named the Convent of St. Mark. In the Death of St. Joseph painting, once again we see various instances of religious symbolism and the theme of Virgin Mary. Medieval to modern will add even more clues, which may help identify the Upper Rhenish master. Since these paintings were purchased by the City Hospital of Strasbourg, which is still in existence, it may be worth a visit to their records department. Therefore, one would try to find any transactional documentation or written information related to this painting, including commission contracts or purchase agreements. Next, it is almost certain the Upper Rhenish master was part of a professional guild to take on important clients during this period. Since this artist is called the Upper Rhenish master, one would presume they were a master painter. This is an important assumption because in large parts of 15th century Europe, only a few master painters were allowed to operate within any city's boundaries. Additionally, these master painters were regulated through professional artisan guilds and had to comply with discrete rules according to their type of art. Panel painters were at the creative top in many artisan guilds and had the highest standards to follow. Artisan guilds were highly exclusive, so the prestige of such a position would imply the Upper Rhenish master was not an obscure painter with little recognition. Therefore, one would assume a master painter's real name would have been provided to maintain the guild's strict system of regulation. Proof of citizenship was also required in many guilds before acceptance. Here is another important piece of information because this artist is thought to have been German. Public and civic records in Strasbourg and surrounding cities could be examined to provide a list of possible candidates operating in the region between 1410 to 1430 AD. Additionally, records of artisan guilds in the same region could be searched from the same time period to generate even more possibilities to identify the Upper Rhenish master. Another avenue to pursue fresh knowledge would be the tax records of Strasbourg and nearby places of commerce between 1410 to 1430 AD. Again, since these were official businesses obtaining fees for their commissioned artwork, taxes would have been levied by local authorities. With access to the tax records of this period, occupations would have been listed, as well as places of business. If the Upper Rhenish master was successful enough to have been a property owner, real names and occupations may be shown in these records. During research, one may find clues by searching information on the Flemish primitive school of painters to see if any mention of a mentor or a teacher from the Strasbourg region is given. From the time estimated for the creation of Little Garden of Paradise to the current estimated time of creation in 1430 for the Death of St. Joseph and the Nativity of the Virgin is 20 years. Surely there is information still waiting to be uncovered to help identify the Upper Rhenish Master. Discovering the true identity of the Upper Rhenish Master would be an event widely recognized and celebrated. It would be valuable information in the art world that would help further knowledge of the medieval arts period for all to learn and enjoy. We hope this episode attracts both professional and amateur researchers to help try and solve this mystery. Perhaps you too could help. Thank you for supporting us at Medieval to Modern. Please be sure to watch our next episode or one shown at the end of this video. Also be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and spread the word about this channel so we can create more exciting content. I wish you good tidings as we remember that sharing knowledge has been a noble deed throughout the ages.